Why does a woman walk into a military flight hangar with nothing but folded paperwork and a quiet request? She doesn't look like someone who belongs there. No uniform, no rank visible on her shoulders, just desert boots that have seen real desert and cargo pants worn soft from use. Her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, revealing a tan line where aviators usually rest. Everything about her whispers rather than shouts, but the way she moves tells a different story. Deliberate, economical, like someone who learned long ago that wasted motion can get you killed. The Arizona sun hammers down on Falcon Mesa at 9 in the morning, turning steel too hot to touch and making every breath something you have to earn. Heat waves dance off the concrete. Shadows feel precious. Smart people stay indoors. Captain Ava Morgan walks through the chain-link gate with the quiet stride of someone who belongs nowhere and everywhere at once. The gate guard barely glances up from his clipboard, just waves her through with the bored efficiency of a man counting hours until lunch. She nods once and keeps walking, her small duffel bag slung over one shoulder, paperwork folded neat in her back pocket. Inside the operations tent, air conditioning fights a losing battle against the desert heat. Two flight instructors lounge in folding chairs, one wearing aviators indoors like it's still 1986, the other clutching a protein shake like it's liquid confidence. They're laughing about something on a tablet screen, probably a video of some cadet washing out spectacularly. "Help you." The aviator guy looks up, his tone carrying that particular brand of boredom that says he's already decided she doesn't belong here. Ava stops in front of their makeshift desk. Her voice comes out level, calm. "Captain Ava Morgan, I have a civilian access pass for Apache simulator time today." She pulls out the paperwork, unfolds it once and places it flat on the table. "Slots booked for 9:30. Protein shake guy looks her over like she's a curiosity at a county fair. "You want a what now?" "Fly the Apache simulator," she repeats, voice level as a carpenter's square. The two men exchange glances, the kind of glances that say everything without saying anything. Aviator guy picks up her paperwork, scans it with the theatrical attention of someone reading a restaurant menu, then drops it back on the table like it's contaminated. "Yeah, see, here's the thing, sweetheart. We're running crew evaluations today. Birds not available for tourists." "The authorization is signed by your base director," Ava says quietly. "Don't care if it's signed by the Pope." Protein shake guy chimes in. "Apache's not a carnival ride. Those birds eat people who don't know what they're doing." Ava doesn't argue, doesn't raise her voice, doesn't even flinch. She just picks up her paperwork, folds it once and steps back toward a metal chair positioned near the tent's edge where she can see the flight line. Something flickers across her face for just a moment. Not anger, not frustration. Something deeper. Something that looks like disappointment mixed with a kind of weary acceptance. "You can wait all you want," aviator guy calls after her. Answer's still going to be no. She sits down, places her bag at her feet, folds her hands in her lap. From where she sits, she can see the Apache simulator hangar shimmering in the distance, heat waves making it dance like a mirage. The two instructors go back to their tablet, shaking their heads and chuckling. "Some people watch Top Gun once and think they're maverick," one mutters. Ava closes her eyes and lets the sound wash over her. Distant rotor thumps from the practice birds, the hiss of hydraulics, the metallic ping of cooling metal. Sounds that have been the soundtrack to half her adult life. Sounds that still live in her dreams. Both the good ones and the ones that wake her up sweating. She'd been up since 5 that morning, sitting on the edge of a motel bed that smelled like industrial disinfectant and old cigarettes. The kind of place that rents rooms by the week and doesn't ask questions. Her gear bag sat open on the single chair, contents organized with military precision. Clean clothes folded tight, toiletries in a clear bag. And at the bottom, wrapped in a faded bandana, a photograph she hadn't looked at in 3 months. She'd pulled it out that morning, held it to the weak light filtering through dusty Venetian blinds. 3 figures on a helipad somewhere in the sand, dust devils swirling in the background. Her in the middle, flight helmet tucked under her arm, flanked by her crew chief and her co-pilot, all of them squinting against the sun, all of them young enough to think they were invincible. The crew chief had made it home, got out, started a family in Ohio, coaches Little League now according to his Christmas cards. The co-pilot never made it past the third deployment. IED took his bird down in a valley whose name she still can't say out loud. His son is graduating flight school next month, has his dad's eyes and his dad's stubborn streak, and absolutely no idea that Captain Ava Morgan exists. She'd promised herself she'd take one last flight before his graduation, not for glory, not for closure, just to prove to herself that she could still touch the sky without falling apart. She folded the photo back into the bandana and zipped her bag. Time to go keep a promise. Now sitting in the shade of the operations tent, she can feel sweat beading at the base of her neck where her hair is pulled back. The tattoo there is small, angular black ink that has faded to charcoal over the years. Most people never see it. Most people don't need to. The minutes tick by. The instructor's conversation drifts from her to weekend plans to complaints about the coffee. Every so often, one of them glances her way and shakes his head like she's a problem that will eventually solve itself. A young mechanic walks past, tool bag slung over her shoulder, grease under her fingernails. She looks at Ava with curious eyes, taking in the stillness, the patience, the way someone can sit in the heat without fidgeting or checking a phone every 30 seconds. "Ma'am," the mechanic says, slowing down. "You okay out here?" Ava opens her eyes, just waiting. The girl nods and keeps walking, but she looks back twice before disappearing into the hangar. Something about the way Ava sits there, perfectly still in the furnace heat, makes her think of her grandfather. Old Marines have that same quality. They can wait forever if they have to. What makes someone wait in 100-degree heat for something everyone says they can't have? Inside the briefing room, the morning's flight instructors are getting their second wind after the initial wave of simulator runs. The air conditioning hums overhead, fighting the desert heat that presses against every window and door. Folding chairs are arranged in loose rows facing a whiteboard covered in call signs, flight times, and weather updates that haven't changed in hours. The same two who turned Ava away are holding court near the coffee station, regaling anyone who will listen with their tale of the wannabe pilot still sitting outside. "I'm telling you, she's been out there for 2 hours," protein shake guy is saying, gesturing with his hands like he's describing a fish that got away. Just sitting there staring at the hangar like she's trying to will herself into the cockpit. A cluster of cadets laughs. These are the new ones, fresh from basic flight training, still young enough to think everything is either hilarious or terrifying with no middle ground. "What's her deal?" asks one, a kid with a Texas drawl and enough confidence for 3 people. "Says she wants to fly the Apache sim," aviator guy replies, shaking his head. "Got some paperwork, says she's qualified, but come on, look at her. Civilian clothes, no patches, no presents. Probably flew drones from some air-conditioned trailer in Nevada and thinks that counts." More laughter, the kind that comes easy when you're young and certain and surrounded by people who think exactly like you do. But then someone walks in who doesn't laugh, doesn't even smile. Air Marshal James Keene steps through the doorway like he owns the oxygen in the room. 30 years in service, 3 wars, more classified missions than he has fingers to count them on. He's seen things that would turn most people's hair white and done things that will never make it into any official record. He's here for a routine inspection, walking the base, checking readiness, making sure standards are being maintained. He moves through the briefing room with the kind of authority that doesn't need to announce itself. People straighten up when he passes, not because they're afraid, because respect is instinctive when you're in the presence of someone who's earned every single gray hair on their head. Keene pours himself coffee, black, no sugar. The conversation around him continues, but quieter now, more controlled. He's not eavesdropping exactly, but he hears everything. The mocking tone, the dismissive laughter, the casual cruelty that comes from people who have never been tested by anything more serious than a simulator malfunction. He walks to the window, looks out across the tarmac, and that's when he sees her, a woman sitting alone in the shade of the operations tent, perfectly still, patient. Something about her posture catches his attention, the way she holds herself, the economy of movement, the quiet dignity. He sets down his coffee, walks outside. The heat hits him like a physical force, but he barely notices. He's crossed deserts on 3 continents. This is just Arizona. As he gets closer, he can see her more clearly now. The weathered boots, the cargo pants, the simple ponytail. And then when she shifts slightly in her chair, he sees it. A small tattoo at the base of her neck. Angular, precise, faded with time. Most people wouldn't recognize it. Most people would assume it's just random ink. But Keene knows better. He knows exactly what it means. And the second he sees it, everything changes. He stops walking, just stands there in the sun, staring, his mind racing through databases of missions and operations and classified files that officially don't exist. That tattoo is a marker, a symbol, the kind of thing that's never written down anywhere but means everything to the people who understand. Ava senses his presence, opens her eyes, looks up. For a moment, they just stare at each other. Two professionals who have operated in spaces most people don't know exist. Recognition passes between them like an electrical current. Captain Morgan, Keene says quietly. The words come out with a weight that makes nearby personnel turn and look. Ava stands, not rushed, not nervous, just the natural movement of someone acknowledging a superior officer, even in civilian clothes, sir. Keene doesn't salute, doesn't extend his hand. He just nods once, a gesture that carries more respect than any formal protocol could convey. He glances at the operations tent, then back at her. They told you the simulator wasn't available. Something like that, she says. Her voice is calm, no bitterness, no complaint, just stating facts. Keene's jaw tightens, not in anger, in something closer to disappointment. The kind you feel when people you expect better from prove they don't understand what they're looking at. He turns and walks back toward the operations tent. Ava doesn't follow, doesn't need to. She just watches as the air marshal disappears inside. What happens when someone who knows your history shows up exactly when you need them? Inside the tent, the temperature drops 10 degrees from the air conditioning, but the atmosphere suddenly feels much colder. Keene stands in the doorway, not saying anything, just looking at the two instructors who are still lounging in their chairs like they own the place. The woman sitting outside, Keene says, his voice quiet and precise. The one you turned away, tell me about her. Aviator guy shifts in his seat. Just some civilian with paperwork, sir. Wanted simulator time. We explained that we're running evaluations today. Did you look at her authorization? We glanced at it, protein shake guy offers. But with all due respect, sir, we can't just let anyone hop into an Apache sim because they have a signature on a form. Keene nods slowly, like he's considering this, like it might be a reasonable position. Then he walks over to their table, picks up the duty roster, scans it with the kind of attention that makes people nervous. Your next evaluation isn't scheduled for another 90 minutes, he observes. The sim is currently unoccupied. So when you told Captain Morgan it wasn't available, what you actually meant was that you didn't think she deserved access. Is that accurate? The two instructors exchange glances. The confidence is draining from the room like water from a cracked glass. Captain, aviator guy says weakly. Captain Ava Morgan, Keene continues. Call sign Ghost Actual. 1,400 hours logged in combat zones across 3 theaters of operation. The pilot who flew the Kandahar extraction that officially never happened. The one who brought out 17 personnel from a hot LZ under conditions that grounded every other bird on the base. The woman who has more combat flight hours than both of you combined will ever accumulate in your entire careers. The silence in the tent is absolute. You can hear the air conditioning hum. the distant sound of rotors, someone's stomach gurgling nervously. That tattoo on her neck, Keene says, his voice dropping even quieter, which somehow makes it more terrifying. That's the mark of Task Force Falcon, special operations group that doesn't officially exist. The kind of unit that gets called when the mission is impossible and failure isn't an option. She earned that ink in places you'll never deploy to, doing things you'll never be cleared to know about. Protein shake guy looks like he might be sick. Sir, we didn't. You didn't know, Keene finishes. That's correct. You didn't know because you didn't bother to find out. You saw a woman in civilian clothes and made assumptions. Let me be very clear about something. That woman sitting outside has forgotten more about flying than you'll ever learn. She's earned the right to fly any simulator on this base, any aircraft on this base. And if either of you ever disrespects her or anyone else based on your limited understanding of who belongs in a cockpit, you'll find yourselves washing trucks for the rest of your very short military careers. Am I understood? Yes, sir, both voices at once, quiet, ashamed. Keene sets down the roster. Get that simulator prepped. Captain Morgan will be flying in 10 minutes, and you'll be watching, both of you, because you're about to receive an education in what real flying looks like. He turns and walks out, back into the heat, back to where Ava is still sitting, patient as stone. She looks up when he approaches. There's a question in her eyes, but she doesn't ask it, doesn't need to. Simulator's ready when you are, Captain Keene says. Ava stands, picks up her bag. For just a moment her composure cracks, not much, just a slight tremor in her hand as she adjusts the strap on her shoulder. Relief, gratitude, the weight of being seen when you've gotten used to being invisible. Thank you, sir, she says quietly. Keene shakes his head. Don't thank me. You earned this 1,000 times over. He pauses. Just show them what they should have known to look for in the first place. Can you prove yourself to people who already decided you don't belong without saying a single word? The walk from the operations tent to the simulator hangar feels longer than it should. Ava's boots crunch against the gravel. The sun beats down, but there's something different now. People are watching. Word has spread. Air Marshal Keene personally escorting someone to the simulator. That never happens. Not for routine training, not for evaluations, only for something important. Inside the hangar, the temperature drops and the light changes. The Apache simulator sits in the center like a mechanical altar. Screens, instruments, the smell of electronics and hydraulic fluid. A small crowd has gathered. Pilots, crew chiefs, cadets who heard something was happening and wanted to see what. The two instructors from earlier stand near the back. They look smaller somehow, diminished. The aviator guy has removed his sunglasses. Protein shake guy has set down his drink. They're not laughing anymore. Ava approaches the simulator with the same quiet efficiency she brings to everything. Sets down her bag, removes her jacket. Underneath, she's wearing a simple black t-shirt. No patches, no rank. Nothing to indicate who she is or what she's done. But when she pulls her hair back tighter and secures it with a simple elastic, the tattoo at the base of her neck is visible. Angular, precise, faded but unmistakable. A few people in the crowd recognize it. Their expressions change. Whispered conversations start and stop. Ghost actual, Task Force Falcon, holy shit. The simulator tech approaches nervously. Ma'am, I'll need to run through the pre-flight checklist with you before. Ava turns and looks at him, not unkindly, just with the kind of quiet authority that comes from sitting in the cockpit while people are shooting at you. I know the checklist, she says gently, but thank you. The tech nods and steps back. He'll tell this story for years. The day Ghost Actual came to Falcon Mesa. Ava climbs into the cockpit, straps in. Her hands move across the instruments with the unconscious precision of muscle memory. Switches flip. Systems power up. The simulator hums to life around her. She reaches for the helmet hanging on the side panel, slides it on, adjusts the fit. For just a moment, sitting there in the artificial cockpit with the screens lighting up and the systems coming online, She's not a civilian in a motel room trying to keep a promise. She's 26 again, flying real missions in real combat zones. The weight of responsibility sitting heavy on her shoulders, and the absolute certainty that she can handle whatever comes next. The simulator operator's voice crackles through the headset. "Captain Morgan, we have you online, ready to begin when you are." Ava takes a breath, deep, steady, ready, she confirms. The screens flicker, the scenario loads, and everyone watching knows they're about to see something they'll never forget. The scenario that loads isn't a standard training run. It's a combat profile, the kind of mission that gets classified the second it's over. Nap of the Earth flight through terrain that satellite imagery says is impassable. Insertion into a landing zone that exists only in the space between two cliff faces, with margins for error measured in inches rather than feet. The kind of flying that separates competent pilots from legends. Ava doesn't hesitate. Her hands move across the controls with the fluid grace of someone who's done this 1,000 times. In the dark, under fire, with wounded personnel in the back and fuel running low and every instrument telling her to abort. The helicopter drops low, so low that on the screens you can see individual rocks and scrub brush. She's threading the needle between canyon walls, banking hard around obstacles, maintaining speed and altitude with the kind of precision that looks effortless but requires absolute concentration. Someone in the crowd inhales sharply. She's flying manual, a pilot whispers. No autopilot assist, no terrain following radar, just her and the bird. The scenario throws complications at her. Mechanical failures, weather, enemy fire, communications jamming, each challenge designed to overwhelm, each one handled with calm competence. Engine temperature rising, she adjusts mixture and collective, hydraulics showing pressure loss. She compensates with manual input, simulated missile lock. She deploys countermeasures and drops into a canyon so tight the rotor wash kicks up dust clouds that obscure the screens. The instructors who turned her away are watching with expressions that cycle between awe and horror and profound embarrassment. This isn't just good flying. This is artistry. This is someone who doesn't fly the aircraft so much as become part of it. Keane stands near the back, arms crossed, expression neutral. But those who know him can see the slight smile at the corner of his mouth. Pride, recognition, the satisfaction of watching someone prove what he already knew to be true. The simulation reaches its climax. The landing zone appears on the screens. It's a joke, a cruel joke, a space barely large enough for the helicopter's footprint, surrounded by sheer walls with crosswinds that would make a normal approach suicidal. The mission parameters require touchdown within 30 seconds. There's no room for error, no second chances. Ava lines up the approach. The helicopter drops. The screens show the ground rushing up, the walls closing in, every instinct screaming to pull up and abort. But she doesn't. She holds the descent, controls the lateral drift with tiny corrections, feathers the collective with the kind of touch that can only come from thousands of hours in the cockpit. The skids touch down, gentle as a kiss, centered perfectly in the landing zone, mission complete. The simulator winds down, the screens fade to black. For a moment there's absolute silence in the hangar. Then someone starts clapping, slowly at first. Then others join. Within seconds the entire crowd is applauding. Not polite recognition, real appreciation. The kind you give someone who's just demonstrated mastery of something most people can't even attempt. Ava removes her helmet, unstraps, climbs out of the cockpit with the same quiet efficiency she showed climbing in. Her face is neutral, not proud, not smug, just calm, like she's done exactly what she came here to do and nothing more. She doesn't acknowledge the applause, doesn't wave or bow or accept the recognition. She just picks up her bag and walks toward the door, her obligation fulfilled, her promise kept. Keane intercepts her at the exit. For a moment, they stand facing each other, two professionals who understand the weight of service and sacrifice. "It was an honor," he says simply. Ava nods once, then walks out into the Arizona heat. Behind her, the crowd slowly disperses, but the conversations will continue for hours, years, maybe forever. The young mechanic who spoke to Ava earlier approaches Keen as he watches her disappear across the tarmac. "Sir, was she really?" "She was," Keen confirms, "the best of the best, the kind they don't make anymore." "Why did she leave?" Keen is quiet for a long moment, watching the heat waves dance off the concrete, because sometimes the mission ends, but the war doesn't, and sometimes the only way to honor the dead is to keep living. What do you leave behind when you've given everything, and the world has moved on without you? The word spreads through Falcon Mesa like wildfire. By 1600 hours, every pilot, every crew chief, every cadet within 50 miles has heard some version of the story. The woman they dismissed as a wannabe was Ghost Actual, the pilot who flew the impossible mission, the legend who disappeared into classified history and emerged years later as a quiet civilian asking politely for simulator time. In the Chow Hall, conversation stops when she walks in, not because people are starring, but because they suddenly understand they're in the presence of someone whose service can't be quantified in normal terms, someone who operated in the spaces between official recognition and necessary action. Ava buys a bottle of water and a sandwich, eats in silence at a corner table, leaves without fanfare, the same way she does everything. Later, as the sun paints the mountains purple and gold, she stands in the parking lot beside a dusty pickup truck that's seen better decades. Her bag is slung over one shoulder, her promise fulfilled. She should feel relief, closure, something. But mostly she just feels tired, the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from doing something hard and doing it right. The young mechanic approaches hesitantly, unsure whether she has the right to speak to someone whose exploits exist only in whispered stories and redacted reports. "Ma'am," she says quietly, "thank you." Ava looks at her, really looks, and sees something familiar, the hunger, the determination, the absolute certainty that the sky is where she belongs regardless of what anyone else thinks about it. "What's your name?" Ava asks. "Sarah, ma'am, Sarah Chen. I'm working on my pilot certification, hopping to get into flight school next year." Ava nods, understanding completely. They're going to tell you it's too hard, that the standards are too high, that you don't have what it takes. Sarah's eyes widen. "How do you?" "Because they told me the same thing." Ava's voice is quiet but firm. "The difference is whether you believe them or believe yourself." She reaches into her bag and pulls out something small wrapped in faded cloth. When she unwraps it, Sarah sees a pair of aviator wings, not the standard issue kind. These are worn smooth by years of handling, their edges softened by time and touch. These belong to someone who believed in the sky more than he believed in the people who said he didn't belong there, Ava says. He never lived to pin them on his uniform, but he earned them just the same. She holds out the wings. "Take care of them. And when someone tells you that you can't fly, remember that the sky doesn't care about their opinions." Sarah's hands tremble as she accepts the wings. She looks up to say thank you, but Ava is already walking toward her truck, her silhouette disappearing into the gathering dusk. The pickup's taillights fade into the distance. Sarah stands there holding the wings, thinking about promises, about service, about the weight of carrying someone else's dreams until you can make them your own. Behind her, the bass settles into its evening rhythm, but something has changed, not just because a legend walked among them, but because she reminded them what they're all really doing there. Learning to fly isn't about the aircraft or the technology or even the missions. It's about keeping faith with the people who flew before them and the people who will fly after them. It's about the endless human need to touch the sky despite all the voices saying it can't be done. In the distance, a training Apache lifts off for a night exercise, its rotors thumping steadily against the desert air. Sarah watches it climb toward the stars and feels something shift inside her chest. Purpose. Direction. the absolute certainty that she belongs up there, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Ava drives through the desert night with the windows down. The air is cool now, clear. Stars scattered across the sky like someone spilled diamonds on black velvet. She thinks about the photo in her bag, the crew chief coaching Little League in Ohio, the co-pilot who never made it home, his son graduating next month with his father's eyes and his father's stubborn streak. She kept her promise, took one last flight, touched the sky without falling apart, and in the process passed something forward to someone who needed it. Maybe that's what it's all about. Not the missions or the medals or the classified operations that officially never happened. Just the quiet act of showing up. Of refusing to let them tell you who you are or what you're capable of. Of carrying the weight forward until you can set it down in someone else's hands. The highway stretches out ahead. Empty, dark, free. She doesn't know where she's going, doesn't really matter. The promise is kept. The wings are passed on. The sky is still there, waiting for anyone brave enough to reach for it. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Sometimes respect isn't demanded. It's earned in silence, in small moments, in the space between what people expect and what you actually deliver. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to show up, do what you came to do, and walk away without needing anyone's applause. The legends aren't always the ones with their names on buildings or their faces on posters. Sometimes they're the ones sitting quietly in the heat, waiting their turn. The ones who know their worth and don't need to announce it. The ones who have already proven everything they needed to prove and are just looking for one more moment to remember why they fell in love with the sky in the first place. The pickup's taillights disappear over the horizon. The desert settles back into its ancient silence. But somewhere out there, a young mechanic is holding a pair of worn aviator wings and making promises of her own. And the cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. Because the sky doesn't care about their opinions. It never did. It just waits, patient and eternal, for anyone willing to reach.